The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister.
Hi, Thomas.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue 1. Fed triggers a huge Bitcoin price pump as BlackRock quietly launches $5 trillion by 2030 game changer that could boost Ethereum, XRP, and crypto. The price of Bitcoin rocketed 5% after the Federal Reserve said that they were not going to raise rates. They're going to leave interest rates on hold, which means they will likely lower rates in the future. Remember, lowering rates means that stocks and other risk assets like Bitcoin go up. The price of Bitcoin is currently 63,828. That's $1 for 1,567 Satoshis. Adam Meister, what do you think about the Fed's announcement and the price of Bitcoin, which recovered from a recent downtrend?
A recent downtrend from the all-time high, baby. It's amazing when you put it in perspective like that. Pound that like button. All right, so let's address the Fed announcement specifically. Yeah, all the normies just, man, they are craving for the Fed to say or hint that the rates are lowering, because that means they can, quote unquote, blow their money on. You see, they're still a little scared. They're still a little scared of Bitcoin because they don't have approval of the powers to be to spend their money yet. They need or to borrow even more money yet. So they need that reassurance, and I think it's gonna, when they actually lower rates, and I believe they're going to lower the rates. Yeah, it's gonna be great. So I can see why people went for Bitcoin's price, because of the no. I mean, why? Who cares how much it is to borrow money? So it just shows you how many entities in the Western world just survive totally on borrowed money. That they can't, they're paralyzed unless they can borrow at a specifically cheap rate. But I don't care about them lowering rates. I do think they are going to do it for a number of reasons, and it will be good for Bitcoin. So anytime they hinted it, playing these tea leaves of the Fed, it just disgusts me. But anytime they hint at it, of course, it'll trigger something good. But then they'll buy the rumor, then they'll sell the news. So yeah, for the long term thinker, the rates are going to go down again. And also for the long term thinker, we're not even past the halving yet, and we had an all time high. So if it goes down again to like 50,000, don't be disappointed. Come on now. 50,000 a few months ago would have been great and everything. So yeah, that's my usual take on the Fed. I think something that can't be denied from all of this is that the macro environment and Bitcoin is still correlated with stock and tech type investments. And a lot of people don't want to admit that, but techs are going to go crazy again when they lower the rates, and Bitcoin will follow. And maybe maybe it's the techs that are following Bitcoin. Who cares? They're similar in that way. But we've had times in the past when gold and Bitcoin were totally correlated. So it will pass eventually. But for the foreseeable future, yeah, they're gonna lower the rates. Bitcoin will go up when they lower the rates, and rumors of lowering the rates will also make Bitcoin temporarily go.
It is amazing how many things are affected by these rates. I know here in Las Vegas, I've been looking into real estate recently, and the realtor told me that because the interest rates are high now, people don't want to refinance. They don't want to buy new homes. They want to stick with their old loan that has the low interest rate. So it is fascinating at a large scale, like this giant Fed makes its decision and that trickles all the way down even to local real estate. But it's interesting how many people are always ready to tell you that you were wrong about the Bitcoin price. How many people have called the top. And for especially myself and Adam Meister here, we've seen this so many times where as hard as it is, and we all have to sell to live, we all sell to buy things, the price of Bitcoin always seems to go higher. There always seems to be a new top. It's always the best investment of 2020, the best investment of 2016. It's this same thing keeps happening again and again. There's a couple of bad years in there, but most years it's like, yeah, if you had Bitcoin and you held it. So as hard as it is during these drops, I'm not Mr. Finance. I don't know the market, much like that famous HODL message the guy put out on Bitcoin Talk. So yeah, I just hold on to what I got. And if it ends to the end of it, I have the same amount. Didn't make more, didn't make less. I've got the same. And like Adam was saying, it's been an all-time high once again. It can be an all-time high again. Like I always think it's that price. What do you think, Adam? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say one of my famous sayings: Bitcoin always returns to its all-time high. Just remember that. So we with the all-time high now is 73,000. It'll be back there. I'm still, get this huge smile on my face. I can't believe it happened before the halving. I mean, clearly, everybody hates some of the hardcore people say they hate the ETFs and the banks and all this. It's clearly because of that that we got to this all-time high so early. I mean, that's the reason right there. Now, in your commentary also, you said something about the $5 trillion BlackRock. What was that exact thing there?
Well, so far we know that they've put $100 million aside to put into an Ethereum ETF, and that in general they just believe that the market of crypto itself is going to expand. I think that's the 5 trillion by 2030, okay. The crypto market in general, I would guess.
It's funny. Everybody loves those huge, gigantic numbers. You hear those huge, gigantic numbers. You're in the bull market. The people saying it's going to be now $5 trillion for the whole crypto market actually is not that big. It's set by 2030. It's not that big. It should be there by 2030. That's a normal number. But people just hear 5 trillion right now. They go crazy. If you're talking for the entire crypto market, 5 trillion, it definitely should be there by 2030. Definitely. But but BlackRock's being logical, and soon we'll talk about the BlackRock ETF, but BlackRock Ethereum ETF. But that's for later this show. Now on to.
We're also joined by Josh Shigala, all the way from Australia. How's it going, Josh? What do you think about the Federal Reserve? They're keeping rates the same. This caused the price of Bitcoin and other so-called risk-on assets to rise, as it's believed people will start investing again.
Yeah, it's actually funny that, because it's meant for the other thing. It's meant for inflation. It's meant as a hedge of inflation. So, like, this is how sort of irrational a market can get, actually, because what it means is that, we cannot have more inflation. We've got to keep rates the same. For those that don't know, rates is basically the price of money. And the cheaper it is, the more inflation you get. The more expensive it is, the less you get eventually. And Bitcoin was like, they're just going to print themselves out of any problems. Wall Street is going to bail themselves out again. Hence the bailout for the banks comment by Satoshi. And it seems the other way around. If we get more inflation, so once they start dropping rates, people will be like, yes, more inflation. We can pump it into Bitcoin. It's a strange world, but I think to your point, 5 trillion. I think what's gold market cap? 15 trillion, something like that.
10, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 10, 13. So, there's definitely some breathing room up there. But I find it extraordinary that trillion is a normal number these days. I find trillion, there's not even, when I was in school, I was taught that there's not a trillion stars. I was taught there's something about something billion stars.
Carl Sagan said billions and billions. So he covered himself there.
Yeah, okay, he covered himself. But trillion is such an extraordinary number. Most people cannot grasp it. I think I've said it before on this show, but I think it's something like 1 million seconds is 11 days, 1 billion seconds is 32 years, and 1 trillion seconds is 32,000 years. So we've gone from 11 days from being a million to 32,000 years being a trillion. Like that's how many seconds. Because most people can't grasp these large numbers. And I think it's kind of demented that we as a society are talking about such big numbers. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe we're such a rich society. Maybe we can all have caviar in the winter because we're such a rich society. We can go down to the local supermarket and pick out some fish eggs. As a normal person, you know.
And remember, as strange as it is, this inflation is packed into the Keynesian idea and the Keynesian model. I remember, growing up in the 80s and 90s, things cost a certain amount, and now you look at it, everything costs more. Nothing makes sense. And that's only 20, 30 years. If you go back to the 50s or the 60s, we're talking, 55-cent hamburgers, 10-cent Cokes, these kind of things. But this is built in, right? This is supposed to keep happening, which again, Josh, I think why we should remind people, obviously we've all been here a long time looking at this Bitcoin thing. Every time the banks or the rich or whoever they are take their $1 million and they buy Bitcoin, they get less Bitcoin, whether it's because of the halvening or because of the price acceleration or because of the market or the hodlers or whatever it is. But you can't just keep getting more Bitcoin. Whereas with stocks and other things in the past, they split, you get more, that kind of things. Other kind of currencies, they print more. Bitcoin being locked means that it's more likely that you could buy a hamburger for $1 million someday, but you probably won't buy a hamburger for 1 Bitcoin. It's probably not going to go that direction. Just look at the basic numbers.
Can I add something real quick? And when we're talking about large numbers and everything, let me tell you about a small number. 16. If you have 16 Bitcoin, you're a millionaire now in terms of dollars. So
that's amazing.
That's another number. It's the trillions and trillions that get people Google-eyed and going crazy. Oh, man, it's as simple as 16, dude. If you would have held on to 16 Bitcoin this long, you'd be a millionaire.
Oh, I don't have it anymore, but there was a time where I think BTCJM was paying people 10 Bitcoins a month for their jobs. And it was a reasonable, middle-class San Francisco type job. Even the tech support people, I think, could have gotten tens of Bitcoins. But again, people had rent. They had things to pay for. They had stuff like that. And now it's time for you guys to earn your money and to predict against the Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all truth and knowledge in this universe. Adam Meister, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
I always say higher. So higher, baby. Take me higher.
Josh Shigala, all positivity on the panel, higher or lower?
Let's roll higher. Yeah, no, probably higher or slightly sideways. Higher. Yeah, let's go.
This week, I won't forget. I'm shaking it right away, even though shaking it can cause bubbles.
Oh.
Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? It is certain. It is certain. The ball has spoken. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, how I became a cult member and how I got out. A new post by Ryan X. Charles talks about his descent into madness, believing that Craig Wright was Satoshi Nakamoto, following Craig Wright to Bitcoin Cash, where he unfortunately sold many of his early old Bitcoins, and then following Craig Wright again to Satoshi's Vision, the third Bitcoin that we had recently. Charles has turned it around, admitted he was fooled, written a large post, started posting videos, started kind of taking on the BSV community of which he used to be a part. Let's go to Josh Shigala first. What do you think about Ryan X. Charles turning it around and the cult of fake Satoshi?
Oh, it's a really, really sad and tough story for me personally, because I've got people very close to me also falling for that stuff. And it's so unfortunate because you'd have like arguments for years I had with people, but it's one of these things that it's really, really, really difficult to get out of a cult or a way of thinking in any way. I mean, there's the name of it is cognitive dissonance. When it becomes extremely painful to admit that you are wrong, that you know, for Ryan, to publicly come out and admit you're wrong. Same with the other guy that he was like 2IC there at Enchain. He came out earlier before the court case and said, "No, this is all a scam." And it's tricky because, you know, Craig is one of these stories. Bitcoin is so extraordinary. Bitcoin and crypto is so extraordinary because there's such amazing stories that we all travel through. You know, some highlights in the history are the DAO, the original the DAO. You know, where there was money trapped and you had a week to get it to, or like a month to get it out because it's in a different contract, and people fighting, and then you've got like Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht case, and then you have, you know, OneCoin, and you have like, not that that was crypto, but it was part of the story there somehow. And this Craig Wright thing is I think one of the most craziest stories in the whole thing, because you have a guy so audacious as to go to the courts and sue people and build patents around. And I mean, and this is a thing that really scared me, was his patents. And this is why I took the court case a lot more serious than a lot of people, and talked about it publicly too. Because if he had have won that court case, and I think even now, even if he hasn't won, there is stuff at play in terms of Enchain's patents. It's formidable. They have like 1,000 patents on all sorts of stuff, from how cold storage works to NFTs to, and this can get quite scary if you're an exchange or something like that, and you thought you were building on an open source technology where you could use the technology, and all of a sudden you're hit with massive licensing fees. It can really destroy you. Of course, at the end of the day, Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin will just keep on being because there's 21 million of them. It doesn't matter. But you know, there's a lot. There's some wacky stuff there. So I was like, oh, this is really fascinating. This thing, and Craig, yeah, going through this, and what was really weird about the whole thing, and why it was one of the most fascinating stories I find, is that there was a likelihood, it was a non-zero chance that he could have been, because he was there early. Did have conversations with some early people. He did, like, there was possibilities, and so everyone's like, but why wouldn't he just sign the thing? Like, why wouldn't he just sign it? And he kept on all these excuses. And then first it was a bonded courier. Then I stood on the hard drive. And then I, like, all these weird contortions to try to like get out of just signing the thing. And and one of the major excuses was, well, I don't want anyone to know how much Bitcoin I've got. Huh? You're claiming you're Satoshi, dude. Everyone knows how many Bitcoin Satoshi has, pretty much, like, kind of around about a number. You know, what is your problem? Just sign the. It's not proof. I want to prove that having a private key is not proof of identity. Yeah, no shit, it's not proof of identity, but it's definitely very good evidence. It's extraordinarily good evidence. In fact, it would weigh the entire case very strongly in your favor, to the point of where you could probably win if you signed the frickin' private key. He didn't. He couldn't, because he's not Satoshi. But yeah, back to the point of Ryan, I always really, and I'm sorry this is a bit of a long talk from my side, but I always really liked Ryan. I liked his work in the early days. I thought he was always an intelligent guy. He did some great work, and so it's good to see that he has the kahunas to admit when he was wrong, which is publicly, which is really, really hard, because people lost a lot of money through this whole thing. The people invested their entire career in, and switched switched careers to work on this. And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe the technology allowed them to think about like, oh, big blocks could work. Maybe I don't know, who knows? But the fact is, the fact is, he's out now and he can get on with his life, which is really great. Welcome back, Ryan X Charles. Well done.
Well, and Josh, you were also early to Bitcoin, made videos about it, wrote about it, talked to people about it. Therefore, you could be Satoshi.
Yeah, I do put some double spaces in sometimes accidentally.
Well, and it is interesting. They've updated that meme where it's pretty embarrassing for maybe Josh and I and other old Bitcoiners, where it's like, oh, you've been in Bitcoin since 2020. You must be so rich. And I think the Ryan X Charles story here is a good example of that, where he was super early. He had lots of Bitcoin, but he got confused by fake Satoshi, went to Satoshi's vision. Many other people go to altcoins. They go to whatever their favorite thing is. They buy that. It fails. And then I also want to highlight from Ryan's story that he met Craig in person. So there's a big thing about personal connections and meeting people. And in his mind, he was meeting Satoshi. He was like meeting a BUIDL. He was meeting a living God. I mean, he was meeting Woz or Jobs or Gates or one of these hugely influential computer people, especially as he spent his life working on similar projects. So I think we have to, let him off a little bit on that. Welcome him back. He's doing good work now. But I think Adam Meister has more of a dark memory of the battles that we had. I remember Ryan X Charles made a kind of a tipping software or something like that. And then for a while it was Bcash only, and then BSV only, and other things like that. So let's go to Adam Meister for more on Ryan X Charles finally leaving the cult of fake Satoshi.
Well, that's the thing that led him to this path. He had a business called Yours, right? It was called Yours, and it relied on cheap transactions. And Bitcoin was getting more and more expensive, so he became a Bcasher at first. But I just wanted to put that out there. Ryan has very high IQ. There's no doubt about it. He has very high IQ. He's a smart man, and yet he fell for this complete nonsense joke. And I give him all the credit in the world, for saying it is a cult. It is a cult. The way Faketoshi runs it is like a cult. Say the more outlandish things you say, the more they believe you. I mean, just keep talking and just excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse, and just being bold and confident and loud and strong, and it's very authoritarian. And even a very high IQ person, fell for it. And there's a lot of other tricks to the trade. I mean, I don't know how to run a darn cult, but a psychopath does, clearly. And he lured in Ryan, and people are saying welcome back, Ryan. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying welcome back for a number of reasons, and one of them again is that I give it just to say that it's a cult, to finally understand, like, welcome back to normality. Welcome back that you are no longer, if you could say it's a cult, then you're not in the cult anymore. That's a great, awesome step and an example. And I think it is waking up some people. If you see in the and by the way, he said he lost a lot of money, a lot. If he would have kept all his Bitcoin, he doesn't know how much he would have. But I mean, he was alluding to hundreds of Bitcoin. Ryan would have now hundreds of Bitcoin, maybe even 1,000. I mean, Ryan was in it, but it's since 2011, I think, or something insane. Very, very, very early. He got big. And the only reason he doesn't have the Bitcoin is, it's his fault because he started believing in the Bcash thing. But then he just totally jumped on the BSV train. But he's got a tweet out there, Ryan, that right now, someone in the chat notified me of this. I'm building a new blockchain based on the writings of Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay, so I mean, there you go. He can't leave well enough alone. He's not back in Bitcoin. He's gonna build his own thing. Fine, build your own darn thing. But that's why I don't want to say welcome back, Ryan. But he should be praised immensely for just speaking out against this cult, and that is what it is. And so you see in some of the comments under his comment, people are saying, welcome back. I'm glad you're back. Finally, it's great to have a loud voice on this. But then there's some people that just keep on making up more excuses for Faketoshi. It won't end. There are some people that just, they can't I don't know, they live vicariously through other people, I guess. And this is a lesson all of us can learn in the space. Okay, this is the first time people become tribal around money. All right, people didn't go get in arguments about what's better, the euro or the US dollar or the Australian dollar. There weren't vicious things about this. Is like hardcore tribes that wished like death almost and regulation against the so-called enemy, the other. So again, there can be figures that arise within the Bitcoin space itself that create their own cults within Bitcoin. So just be careful. Don't get into the Bitcoin Inquisition. Don't, keep an open mind. It's not a zero-sum game. You don't have to destroy everything. You don't have to worship a prominent leader. And you can lose your mind if you're a freaking genius. This Ryan is a smart, I don't know if he's a genius. He's a high IQ guy. He lost his rational. I would read things back in 2020. I just couldn't believe it. He would say again and again, Craig is Satoshi, Craig is Satoshi, Craig is Satoshi. I mean, he was like, I can't say this on YouTube, but what they used to, during the third, in Germany, when they would put their hands up and say, hail, I mean, it was unbelievable. Some of them still, that's kind of like the money guy behind Craig. What's his name? Calvin. He says the same. Craig is Satoshi, Craig is Satoshi. It's a mindless chant of worship and loyalty that you do in a dangerous cult. Now, how dangerous is this? Economically, it is dangerous for the people who participate in it that get rid of all of their Bitcoin for this nonsense. Now, again, Ryan had a business where he needed cheap transactions. So he was led down this, it came natural to be a Bcash person, but he chose BSV over Bcash. He chose, and that was a very bad choice. But it made him insane. It brought him to this level. So again, this is a new level of cultism that we've never experienced on this planet when people get tribal behind money. We've not experienced, and money is very important to people. And so you can see how if you mix it with tribalism, you can go down some freaking nasty roads. And and just because some smart people, and there's that other smart guy who's a dork who likes a BSB, who has like a pony as his whatever on his, I forgot what his name is. He used to be a big Bitcoiner too. Who's he? He's a little chunky guy. He's got black hair. What's that guy's name? Thomas. What's his name? Do you know who I'm talking about? He's still
Kevin
talking.
Pham. I don't know. I'm losing people here.
Who's this?
The guy with the hair.
No, here he is. Daniel Kravitz. Daniel Kravitz.
Yeah, Daniel Kravitz. Yeah, he does the. He actually coined the. What are they like? Total Bitcoinization, or what is it called? Hyper Bitcoinization.
Well, there was a time
he actually coined that phrase. Yeah.
There was a time when he was a Bitcoin, but he's a very smart guy. He's not socially very normal, I don't think, but that's a different thing. But I mean, he's still pumping BSV. So there's a lot of people that still got to get out of the cult. There's still a lot of people making excuses, but some of the excuses are a little bit nuanced now. They're like, well, he's a jerk. He's just a jerk. Fake Toshi. And so and he lies sometimes. I mean, there's some people that are kind of like, they don't want to admit totally that they were wrong, but they still haven't fully come around. But the more the merrier that come out on this, so that it doesn't happen again.
I do want to say that money does does attract cultism in terms of and viciousness. If you look at some of the big wars, could be put down to the fact that America didn't want oil settlement in some other currency. So Gaddafi, Hussein, who wanted a gold standard for oil settlement. So it can cause it in the traditional sense as well, where it becomes very nasty and you start sending soldiers. But I mean, obviously people that's debatable, whereas this isn't debatable. You can pretty much say, hey,
this is regular individuals are taking it very, very personally. If Ethereum does well, I mean, but Bitcoin and Ethereum can both do well. I mean, I don't. There are people who actually want the other. I mean, I've heard people say Ethereum is the biggest scam in the history of mankind, and that it
Yeah.
should die. I mean, this
Yeah.
is insane.
Yeah.
That's cult. That's crazy cultism, man. That's just like,
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
and the same with Bcash and BSV. It's not that we wanted them to fail. It's just we stopped talking about them and moved on to the next issue. We didn't
yes,
really
Yeah.
worry about them, and it was up to them to promote themselves and make their software work and things like this.
Exactly. And I've said this before to other people. And Adam, you put this really well. A lot of us have run businesses. I've run multiple businesses in this space, and they were very, very hurt by because they were launched early when Bitcoin transactions were very cheap, and when the blocks filled up, the promise that we'd had of banking the unbanked and laughing at MoneyGram and memes about MoneyGram's fees and stuff all of a sudden became kind of embarrassing because we were paying more fees on our end. Then we were pissed off because as people that didn't fully grasp the nature of the blockchain, that it's cheap all the way. It's still cheap. It's still cheap. It's still cheap. But it's expensive now, really expensive. And then, so because it's cheap once it fills up, it's not, and it can be cheap really close to the edge as well. And so, look, to Thomas's point as well, I don't mind people work, like, I like the fact that people work on big blocks. We don't know what's best. Like, I feel at my heart that layer 2, layer 3, these sorts of ideas are best. If I work through it logically, for me, that is the best way to scale. But hey, if there's a whole army of people working on that and a whole army of people working on big block technology, hey, maybe that is the way to scale. Maybe they'll crack the nut, just like Satoshi cracked the nut of rare digital assets all of a sudden. Maybe they will turn it around and find some cryptographic way of making big blocks work fantastically. I don't know. So if we want to beat central banking and fractional reserve system and the fractional reserve system, we need people working on all sorts of stuff, and let the free market decide and figure out, hey, wow, look, they've made it work. But don't go around pretending you're someone you're not to try to attract money to your project. That's what I find so offensive about Craig Wright and Satoshi.
well, yeah, Craig Wright uses the ultimate enforce. He's suing everybody to intimidate
Yeah.
them. I mean, this is so that definitely should be commented on. But I think Bitcoin people have done a very good job of ignoring BSV. There's a lot of Bitcoin people that are obsessed with Ethereum, but there was no one. I mean, the reason we would keep hearing about BSV is because these cult members would come into our chats and everything and just, Craig is Satoshi, just post nonsense after nonsense and just trolling and stuff. But they weren't exactly trolling. They really believed it, type of thing. So it is a weird little corner of the space, the BSV thing. And it just won't die. And he just keeps milking it and milking. And I've said the long-term goal of Fake Toshi must be to get some type of, but I don't know why he doesn't try to pull it right now, because his people are so loyal to him, to just get the BSV Satoshi coins given over to him. Just, he takes control of the 1.5 million BSV coins, and that's worth a lot of money. I mean, what's BSV worth? Like $50. I mean, and indeed, if that actually happened, I mean, because it could be, they could do anything they want to. It could be centralized and everything like that if they want it to be. Change how it all works, do a hard fork to make it so that Craig gets all those Satoshi BSVs. Some people will sell right away, but it'll be worth quite a lot of money for that to happen. So I assume that's part of the long-term goal here. But he's just psychopathic too, and he likes attention. I mean, this is the greatest BSV story I've ever heard now. That one of the biggest cult members left. And I think there's so much positive and so many lessons can be learned from it that are going to be very productive. And just another interesting aspect of it, yeah, in 2017, people were very disappointed. I mean, Roger Ver was the first one to take advantage of that people were angry that the fees were so high. And I mean, Roger really believed in it hardcore, that he did what he did. So it is almost a natural inclination of some of the people who went that route to follow a strong leader, because Roger was a strong leader, but Roger wasn't. I mean, it's there's no comparison comparing Roger and this dude and fake Toshi. It's just
No, it's fine to believe in bigger blocks. It's fine. If you believe in bigger blocks, build the technology, do it. We're all technologists. We all love experimenting with technology, but don't go around pretending you're someone you're not, you know, and having an affinity scam is really what it's all about here. You know, if Roger teetered on the affinity scam. Roger, what he tried to do was say, we are the real Bitcoin and you're not. So, and that, I didn't like that, because he was tricking new people into buying that Bitcoin Cash, instead of saying, we are an alternative that has got cheaper fees, and we're a fork, and admitting technically to all that. Instead, it was also like that. But also, you know, I wish Roger's BCH all the luck as well, and success. I don't care. What I care about is people not being scammed with an affinity scam of thinking they're investing in something when they're not really investing in that.
It was really low, and it could have been a technical disaster, as people could have withdrawn Bitcoin thinking it was Bitcoin, and really it was Bcash. And the way it used the same address structure and all of that was pretty awful. But I agree with Adam. I think that fake Satoshi wants the fake Satoshi coins from BSV, and I'm surprised he didn't just take them when they forked off. It seems obvious that he forgot his key, or a dog ate it, or there was a boating accident. And we all know Bitcoin just gives you your money back if you lost it. That's the kind of system it is that Satoshi created. So of course Satoshi would expect that from the system that he created. And I think that's about it for this topic. I want to say I met Ryan X Charles a couple of times at Purse. He was friends with my friend JJ, and seemed like a cool guy. Again, before the whole BSV and Bcash and all of that happened, we were all happy Bitcoiners, even Vitalik back in the day. But moving on to an unhappy Bitcoiner, issue 3. SBF says that the proposed 50-year sentence casts him as a depraved supervillain. Crushing Sam in this way is unnecessary, said lawyers for the former FTX CEO. Meanwhile, Ross Ulbricht, aka the Dread Pirate Roberts, was sentenced to life in prison in a federal court. Adam Meister, what do you think about SBF saying that his sentence is too long? All he did was lie, misuse company funds, allegedly, and destroy people's retirements, make them lose all of their money, not just some, but all.
I think some. Well, I still haven't met anyone that lost money there. I'm still very curious about this situation. Who were the people who lost the money? And I've been in this space. And that was last time I was on your show in October. I said the same thing. I don't know anybody who lost money over there. I don't know anybody who ever used that exchange. Don't know a person. And I know a lot of people. And so I theorize that he ripped off some very, very wealthy people. He made some deals with them, but they're not even speaking. Tom Brady had some deals with him with the advertising and everything like that. And was it Tom Brady? Somebody famous. So I want to hear some real victim impact statements here. And I'm sure the court will want to hear them and just see how people were hurt, how much money did people get back, how much did they really lose? Because you've heard all this, in terms of fiat. I think people are going to be, what they put in, they're going to get back. Now, what they put in Bitcoin, are they going to get back? I don't think they are. But so we're talking about 50. They want to put them in 50 years. Obviously, to set an example, I would assume. It probably is. That sounds like a lot for that dude. He should go to jail for what he did, but I'd like some more clarification on exactly what happened to the victim, who the victims are, what exactly happened, specific victims, and why I don't know anyone who ever used that exchanged. So, I mean, I know a lot of the trading when it was fake, probably like what, 90%? I don't know. I mean, one can only imagine here. So I'm not making it up. He did a very bad thing. I mean, he took customers, you're not supposed to take customers' funds and then use them to fund your pet projects and stuff and whatever the heck he was doing. And that is a crime, and he should be punished here. But did everybody end up getting their money back? Who was it? Little old ladies, or was it Tom Brady? And did Tom Brady have an advertising deal that was part of the agreement that he got ripped off on? I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, I'm not that interested in the story personally, but there's a lot more that can come out. I think a lot of people just like to say, "Oh, look, it's crypto. This is what happens. Another crypto criminal." Well, let's get into like what exactly happened. What exactly happened? I think that would be better for all involved. So at this point, I think 50 years seems like a lot.
It is interesting, Adam, the different market segments that people are in. Remember the OneCoin scam? I never knew anyone that was into OneCoin, but they spread it through this multi-level marketing technique, and they had seminars, and they attracted people, I don't know, get rich quick people, investment seminar people, those kind of people. And again, I didn't know one of them, but it was a huge scam. So in the same way, I don't know these FTX people, but I can assume they're probably low information people, not Bitcoin people watching this show or reading about Bitcoin every day, that kind of thing. So they get the low information that FTX is a good place. And the marketing really made it look like a bank. They were always using the banker blue, like this background here, and they always had really strong advertisements. But I want to take a minute and remind everyone and stand up for an advertisement. Fortune favors the bold. Everyone had such a great time dunking on Matt Damon, how stupid he was. He was in this Super Bowl commercial with the spaceships and the rocket ships, and the South Park guys, who I love, but they get things wrong every once in a while, even made all of these crypto influencers like Tom Brady and Gwyneth Paltrow and Larry David, they made them drink their own pee because their investment advice was so bad. But now, 2 years later, the price of Bitcoin's back. Everything's fine. Their investment advice actually turns out to be solid if you can invest for the long term. If you need to get rich tomorrow, no amount of investment advice from Tom Brady or Matt Damon or anybody else is going to save you. But let's go to Josh Shigala. What do you think about Sam? He wants a lighter sentence. All he did was ruin a bunch of people's lives. All he did to us was take away the Blockfolio app. But still, that's pretty bad.
That was the worst part for me. Yeah, Adam, after your last appearance, I did actually think a lot about that statement. And then I talked to a bunch of people, and I did actually meet some people especially over in Asia, that lost, because what happened was the Singapore government has this retirement fund from everybody, and even that fund invested in FTX because these large VC funds invested. So everyone in Singapore kind of lost a little bit. The scale, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't really small time retail investors, that many of them. Probably there are mixed in there as well. I don't know any, but yeah, the thing is with the sentence of Sam, what I noticed, and I do agree with the article on this, is that there is this sort of lynch mobbing mentality around Sam as this supervillain. And I agree. He's it is absolutely atrocious what he did. I'm not excusing any of it. But there were other people involved. Why aren't they in prison? Why isn't his girlfriend? Why did she get off? Because she, and why didn't the other guy get off? Like, it was just all this focus on Sam. And this is typical human behavior. It's something that humans seem to do a lot. They like to, when something bad happens, focus on the one person and not all of the other people that actually helped out in the situation. And
Well, to be fair, he did benefit from this on the way up. On the way up, he was the lone genius, and he was a weirdo, and he had weird hair, and he dressed casual, and he had a Honda Accord or whatever it was. So he benefited from this appearance. But then now this other appearance where he's lost control of his hair, he's lost control of his outfit, he's being forced to wear a suit in many court situations and so forth. The lone genius thing doesn't work out on the way down. I do agree, Josh.
Yeah.
We do this to everybody. I think in the Steve Jobs movie, I think Jobs felt the same way. Like, I have made Apple Computer for you, but I didn't make enough money for you lately, so you're mad at me, stock market, and so forth.
Yeah, when really it's a whole team. The same with Elon Musk. Elon gets all this praise and everything, but which, you know, he's a very smart guy. He knows how to employ the right people. But man, he's got a team of absolute excellence around him. And that's what builds this thing. Just as in the inverse, Sam has a team of absolute nuisance and
well, part of that
and,
again, that's part of the plan, where you have to be the wild, uncontrolled kids taking that kidney medicine or whatever it was, so they could stay up late and trade more, and whatever they were doing with the swaps and the leverage and all those things. And they were smarter than everyone else. So part of that was the lack of grown-ups, the lack of control. And then when the minute they crack it open, the guy who did the Enron case is in charge of it. He's like, there's no financial controls, there's no systems, there's no organization, there's no company here. No. And that, again, that was the kids in control. Adam, do you have more on this?
They were using Excel spreadsheets for their finances. It was hilarious. The other people got off because they snitched on him. I mean, they made deals with the government. His girlfriend got off, but she snitched on him. I mean, that's known. And so, I mean, it says she's not worried about any repercussions. So he can't be that bad. As in Baltimore, when you snitch on someone, you know what happened. So, anyway, but you know, he did a bad thing, but she did a bad thing too. She was deep in it also. But the way the government works is that they want that one scapegoat, the one easy, and he's an easy guy to hate. I mean, well, in this day and age, at least, he's an easy guy. That's what I hate scapegoating. I just hate it when, you know, everybody says it's never as simple as that one person is the sole reason for all my problems. And that's Sam is the scapegoat of the month here right now. I mean, people are blaming him for everything, and they're piling on. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the judge just does give it and gives him 50 years. But again, you know, I'm not in the courtroom, so I don't know everything. And also, if he's ripping off people in other countries, I mean, does the United States have jurisdiction over the entire world? Is another question. I mean, the court case should be about what he did to American citizens and everything.
Yeah,
and the financial crimes he committed but the way the United States finance works is that the United States thinks it does control the finances of the entire world and is up in everybody's financial business. It's one of the reasons the dollar stays so strong. I mean, you got to hand it to them at least. It helps us in some ways, but it's kind of it's quite dictatorial in another way. But that's going off on a little tangent.
Yeah, and I agree with Josh that other people helped in this. Tiffany, or not Tiffany, but sorry, the girlfriend, the other guy, Mr. Fong, other kinds of people. But the real people who helped, and the real people who aren't going to get punished legally, and I'm not even really suggesting that, but we should be punishing them with our minds, are these people who didn't do the due diligence. Oh. There are some companies with smarter, richer people than us, more experience, all those things. And at some point, one of them didn't do the due diligence, and they just said, this looks fine. And then a bunch of the other ones, and I'm not naming names, I don't even know the names, they all said, this is fine too. And they waded in with their millions and billions, like you say, the Singapore People's Money, the Teachers Fund, all these other kind of funds. They don't know what they're doing, but they follow these people, and these people said it was okay without doing their due diligence. And that's what I think we should expose. We should say, oh, here's the hole. Sequoia didn't do their due diligence. So-and-so followed them, allegedly, and so forth, whatever. But if we could just get it back to where did we lose the spaceship? And I think we lost this spaceship when they didn't go to Sam and say, hey, do you have a company structure? Do you have an HR person? How do you approve deals? Disappearing emojis in shadowy chat rooms? Like, any kind of cursory analysis of this, you'd think would have led to an understanding of what kind of business it was.
So when we say he stole millions of dollars, that's what I want to know. Did he steal it most from these big, gigantic organizations that refused to do their due diligence and threw him a lot of money because it was making them a lot of money. Well, I mean, 50, I mean, they're part of the problem. Thomas, you put it real well here. I mean, he was running a scam indeed, but it could have been identified so early, and so many big names just piled into it without like looking for his accounting. I mean, let's see the numbers, dude. I don't think anyone did that, which is like really kind of scary on a certain level. I mean,
well, and remember, some of these companies are magical. They don't make money. They don't plan to make money. They don't have a strategy to make money. And yet, you know, they're packing in the amazing t-shirts and the really cool merch, and they just seem to have an endless supply of money. Let's go back to Josh. You have more on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, similar to Craig Wright, it's this sort of authority investing thing, where you're investing in an authority. So I think that Sequoia Capital should have been held over the coals for this, because they were allegedly, I think, the lead investor in FTX. So when Sequoia invests, you don't even do your due diligence. If you're another VC, you're like, what, Sequoia's in? I'm into. Yep. How much are you going to put in? What's the return? Okay, here. How much did Sequoia put in? And you just follow. And this is what Sam played at, is that whether he did it on purpose or not, I think the game was like getting rich off of this kid who's this genius philanthropist who's well connected too. And so yeah, like Sequoia, why haven't they been taken to court about this? Because they didn't do their due diligence, there was this cascade of other large institutions, Rabbit Finance, or like so many. And what happened there? Why didn't anybody else take Sequoia to case about this? I think it's a really important question. And I think in the future, people have to realize that VCs are the dumb money. They're not the smart money. They are the dumb money, and they follow, just like why Bitcoin businesses can't get financed in the bear market, because it's the dumb money, and the dumb money doesn't want to invest in things in the future. They want to jump on the hype train, just like retail. And so, and that's what they did. They jumped on the hype train. What Sequoia's in, I'm in. And yeah, that's what I want to say about it.
It's a miracle that any of these startups work at all. I've also heard, like Josh is saying, of VCs who just wait to be like the 10th investor. And there's already 9 investors in, and all the big names are there, and they show up at the end with the last 100K or whatever, the icing on the cake. They never take any real risks. And even then, if you look at this, or you look at other startups, pets.com, other disasters, they don't really know what they're doing. And oftentimes they're fooled by a great presentation. And you too could be fooled by a great presentation at worldcryptonetwork.com, where we've got thousands of videos all for free. Our first video was 10 years, 3 months, 11 days ago, and you could watch it for 3 months, 18 days, and 15 hours straight without taking a break. That's a really long time. Moving on to issue 4. The SEC is waging an energetic legal campaign to classify Ethereum as a security. Meanwhile, BlackRock aims to launch a tokenized investing fund seeking the SEC nod for the BUIDL token, or the BUIDL fund, on Ethereum. And they're saying that BlackRock's head of digital assets says, for our clients, Bitcoin is overwhelmingly the #1 priority. So the SEC wants Ethereum, and BlackRock wants it as well. Adam Meister, what do you think about the SEC and BlackRock and the possibility of an Ethereum ETF?
I just love how, like, the first comment under that Ethereum tweet, and everyone, or second comment, you can see it from yourself. It's some Bitcoin guy just saying Ethereum is, I'm not gonna say the word S-turd, is a, he talks like a little child there. Look at the Bitcoin therapist. That's his intelligent reply. I mean, it's an embarrassment, and that's what we get. I mean, who you should be happy with Bitcoin, man. You should be. Why, dude? Regimes change in the United States. Okay, Maybe this SEC will act. I don't think the ETFs can get approved this time. I think there will be an Ethereum ETF. I mean, these gigantic corporations are not, applying to it because they don't think it's not possible one day. It's possible, and yeah, I don't exactly believe that there is a big move within the government to classify Ethereum as something different than Bitcoin as a security. Because then it would really leave Bitcoin as the only possible cryptocurrency that could be an ETF of, and I don't think they're going to do that. And people shouldn't. If people get joy from Ethereum not having an ETF, I feel bad for those people. I don't get joy from it. I don't see why are you stifling financial transactions and stuff. It's a totally, it's just ironic that some Bitcoin people, like that guy just calling it a turd, so intelligent, are saying want the government to regulate. Or yes, it's a security. Yes, government, please say it's a security. What? And you're in Bitcoin, dude. Bitcoin is like the original money that's not controlled by any government. Yet you want any possible competitors to be killed by the government, and this should not be celebrated if it actually happens. Because let the best coin win. Let the best one win, and we should. I'm a confident decentralist. I'm totally confident in Bitcoin, and it doesn't have to be the center of the world that dictates what the other current cryptocurrencies do, or that you must get into Bitcoin. It's so authoritarian. It's so centralized that these Bitcoins have these centralized government-friendly attitudes towards certain things. And it's just, have some principles, dudes. Have some principles. So, maybe the Ethereum ETF will be slowed down. Maybe the current, SEC regime doesn't like that. There'll be future ones. And since Ethereum is centralized and has a charismatic leader, they'll be able to bribe the correct people eventually to allow the SEC will grant them an ETF. They will be the second coin to get an ETF. It will happen eventually.
Well, and remember, a lot of people, it's not that they don't like the monarchy. They just want to be king.
Yeah.
And we have to watch out for that. But I see it as well as Adam with, we need to treat these banks like the newcomers, like the infants and the children that they are, and welcome them to Bitcoin and as a larger world, crypto. And we all know what happens when you get into Bitcoin. You say, wow, that one Bitcoin's mighty expensive. I don't know how I'm ever going to get that many Satoshis, but I can get 2 wobble coins, and I could get 4 wibbly coins and 13 jostle coins, and everyone goes through an altcoin phase. And I think it's unfair of us to assume that the banks who are into money, kind of obsessed with it, really, they don't really think about anything else or society or anything else. And you say somebody made money on an altcoin, his buddy got a Ferrari, and obviously I think the banks are going to be into it. They're going to want to do ETFs and investment vehicles and leverage, and it doesn't matter if it has as much of a monetary backing as Dogecoin. They'll write papers and they'll invent experts and they'll go on CNBC and they'll tell you how great it is. And then I don't know about the end of the Dogecoin or the meme coin ETF. But Josh Shigala, what do you think? Ethereum ETF, SEC versus BlackRock. Again, what a thing for cryptocurrency, even if you don't like Ethereum, to have friends like BlackRock in your corner. Massive, gigantic companies and incredible analysts who, again, all missed it. If you want to hire someone smart, hire someone on this show. If you want to hire an analyst that missed it, go to BlackRock, go to these big firms. They all missed it again and again and again. And I'm not saying I had perfect confidence. I think Meister's the confidence leader here, but in general, our investment thesis, Bitcoin is good, has been solid from day one and made, people money and lost money and, not perfect. Not Ryan X. Charles though. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the Ethereum ETF? Go ahead. I talk too much.
No, it's true. I think it's fascinating that we'll have, these battles between the SEC and and Bitcoiners and Bitcoiners. And Adam, you're spot on. This whole calling for the person, the crushing by the state's boot of these of something like Ethereum, and Jack E in the chat mentioned it as well, that there are no smart contracts on Bitcoin as broad as something on Ethereum. Like, I couldn't build the standard on Bitcoin. I would love to, but at the same time, I don't want to upgrade Bitcoin because it just works. Because if Bitcoin fails, everything fails. We see it on the charts. As soon as Bitcoin bleeds, everything bleeds. And so I wouldn't, I like the fact that that the crypto space is decentralized in the fact that there's a lot of competition. The cat's out of the bag. You cannot if we just had single Bitcoin and everything else was illegal, that would be terrible. In my view, it would be absolutely terrible from an old cypherpunk sort of viewpoint. You want competition. Competition keeps the bastards honest. And so having competition is important. In terms of the ETF, I think it would be very scary for Ethereum actually to have an ETF because they are proof of stake, and it would mean that BlackRock would have a vast majority stake. If you think of people holding it as mining pools, BlackRock's mining pool would be absolutely extraordinary, and they would have a vast amount of sway in the direction of the coin. And so, I don't know whether that's a good thing or not. I don't think it is. I think, you fundamentally, you want as many people as possible having your token, because that is as decentralized as it can get. When you have a proof of stake system, is you want as many people as possible holding the coin. You want as much distribution. And I think this has always been my thing against proof of stake, is that generally you can be like, for instance, you can take all the money in the world and be some sort of like extreme socialist freak who divvies it out perfectly evenly amongst everybody in the world. And I can guarantee you that within 6 months, and probably less, the same people that are super wealthy now have way more than everybody else, because they just understand, or even have a will to want to collect money and pool it. And that's the same with I know people that are surfers. They don't want money. They're not interested in it. They just want enough to have some fruit to eat, and they go surfing all day. They don't care about it. And there's people that are obsessed. They want more of it. And this is the problem with proof of stake. It builds towards these people large reserves, and they have more sway. Now, that's fine if there's enough of those people, because that's still decentralized. But if you get something like BlackRock that collects a vast amount, I think it could be a dangerous part of the game. So yeah, that's just my point of view. But yeah, they'll get an ETF. They'll get an ETF.
I think you're right, Josh. I think we have to appreciate and understand the attitude of these conquerors, because they've conquered before, right? If you look at every new technology, radio, printing presses were democratizing medium. Anyone could have a radio station. Anyone could have a pamphlet. Someone would read it. The early internet blogs and web pages were democratizing. Anyone could have a web page. Anyone could have a blog. Now it's all medium. It's all Facebook or Twitter. It's top-down control. But it's curious to see if it's going to turn out for them in Bitcoin, in this decentralized tech, the same way that it's turned out in every centralized tech, right? Centralized tech, you move in, you monopolize it, you make it easier to do Facebook than to do your own blog, easier to do Twitter, more benefits and advantages. But with Bitcoin, can they build a coin that has better advantages, that has more control? Or, as I predict, Bitcoin will be more like torrents, a technology that's kind of pushed underground and acknowledged as being a great technology, but not something you'd want to use. You wouldn't want to use those dirty torrents to download your Windows updates or your Linux updates. And then in the background, it's all running torrents. It's all running things like that, because they've burned their bridges. There's no way back, and the horse is inside the walls. So it'll be interesting to see how much they commit to Bitcoin and how much they continue to fight caught in one of those nets. Moving on to issue 5. This is a long article, way too long. Honduras ratchets up battle with crypto libertarian investors and rejects the World Bank court. This is a very interesting article, very interesting situation. As the article from the Intercept says, the fight presents an almost impossible to believe scenario. A group of libertarian investors teamed up with a former Honduran government, which was tied at the hip to narco traffickers and came to power after a US-backed military coup, in order to implement the world's most radical libertarian policy, which turned over significance of the portions of the countries to these investors through so-called special economic zones. The Honduran public, in a backlash, ousted the narco-backed regime, and the new government repealed the libertarian legislation. The crypto investors, and again, these are the anti-government libertarian crypto investors, are now using the World Bank to force Honduras to honor the government policies they had under the narco government, the special engagement zone. So that was a lot to explain, but just a very interesting position for so-called crypto libertarian investors who are now friends with the World Bank. Adam Meister, what do you think about the mess in Honduras? And did you ever think that governments and so forth would be fighting with crypto libertarian investors? Again, we don't know who these investors are. We don't know them personally and so forth, but it is a fascinating idea that they're obviously being identified by their political beliefs. Adam, what do you think?
Did I ever think that governments, Central American governments, would be fighting with crypto libertarian, so-called crypto libertarian investors? Not only did I think that, I've been predicting it for a while in El Salvador, because one day that dictator won't be the dictator there anymore. And the policy toward Bitcoin will be totally different. Maybe the next dictator will be, for the people, we must take all of the property of the people that invested in our country, that ruined us with Bitcoin. We must take all their property right now. Well, why not? That will happen. And we will make an example of this guy named Max. Well, no, you can't do that to me. You can't do that. I supported the dictator, even though I was supposed to be a libertarian, blah, 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 blah. I support dictators in Iran, too. Oh, my God. You can't do this to me because I pretend to be a libertarian. Dude, people need to understand, in these countries, it might seem like a freaking dream right now, okay? There are some shady, shady dudes there from the West and from that are native there. And they might make it seem like your libertarian playground for now, but things change real quick. Look up some history. Just Google Central American coups, okay? So, of course, an unstable country like Honduras is gonna, if the government changes, they're not gonna care about free economic zones anymore. So then you look like a complete hypocrite when you say, no, the government owes me now and I'm going to, this other government should use its power over the old government and give me what's my, dude, it was totally a risk on your part. You got into it because you thought there were going to be no governments involved at all in your little zone. And you didn't understand, like, if any of these, I don't know if there's a country on earth that would really, really, really permit a truly free libertarian economic zone. You might as well just stick with the current freest countries in the world to run your businesses instead of going with the flavor of the month, because it's just like I've seen many altcoin flavor of the months come and go, and now I'm seeing many supposedly libertarian friendly Central American countries flavor of the months come and go. And don't worry, El Salvador will. What happened to my volcano bonds? What happened to my volcano power? The government told me that it'll be the same thing there eventually. People put these people on pedestals, and I just think it's sickening how the whole El Salvador thing has become a cult in Bitcoin. And this should be a lesson. Bitcoin doesn't need a country, okay? It doesn't need a big loudmouth, brash talker who used to work for Iranian state TV named Max Kaiser. And he did. You could go. He doesn't talk about his Max coin or anything like this. But whatever. At least in this Honduras situation, there weren't there's no prominent barker screaming how great it was going to be there. It didn't really hit our radars the same way this whole El Salvador thing is. But it's a lesson to learn. They're very unstable countries. Don't I mean, if you have principles in governmentless money that doesn't have a government, then don't rely on governments. Okay.
It's interesting. It's a lot like when they created Coinbase and all of these other structures where everyone said, oh, we don't need a bank. We don't need a Bitcoin bank. We don't need a Bitcoin country. These are anachronisms. They don't fit together properly. And then with the El Salvador thing, everyone just lost their minds over essentially this dictator who overthrew the Supreme Court with violence, threatens of violence. And we've all predicted will likely take the money when he leaves. But like Adam was saying, I was reminded, of course, how kids don't watch movies these days. And they probably haven't even seen The Godfather 1, let alone The Godfather 2, in which the exact scenario that we're talking about happens. They're in Cuba, and 1 minute it's a glorious party, and the American capitalists and mobsters, basically, as well, who are aligned together, are chinking champagne, and it's so great. And the next moment, boom, the revolution starts. Castro there, Michael disappears. Other people are stuck in Cuba. They don't have the power that they had 10 minutes ago. And it can happen that fast. And that's what's been so amazing about the United States for the last 200 years. And I hope that it continues, is that we do have this peaceful transfer of power where power is exchanged through a democratic medium, which gives you more stability for your contracts, because that's the core problem here. Like Adam was saying, these libertarians had contracts with the previous government, and when the new government came in, they did not honor the old contracts, which I've always said about all this blockchain land distribution, and we're going to put the bills on the blockchain and we'll prove that we own it. We obviously know the major world disaster situation where people are fighting over thousands of year land, and you owned it thousands years ago on the Bible chain, and I was on the Torah chain and the other chain. And again, these chains don't matter when the new dictator says such and such and such, or the new person building a settlement, or whatever it is. So yes, and we do get negative comments for being negative about El Salvador. I want to respond. I try not to, but which dictator worked out for the people long term? Just let me know. I'll wait. Stalin, Mao, other ones. Which one worked out for the people long term? And I wish the best for the people of El Salvador, but I just don't think it works long term. Let's go to Josh Shigala. What do you think about the crypto libertarians? And it might be crypto as like a mystery if they really are libertarians, or perhaps all kings turn out this way, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Well, I've actually got friends in working on this. Patrick Friedman is a friend of mine. He's the grandson of Milton, and it's Pronomos Capital who set up or helped fund this. They're backed by Peter Thiel, so there's some big names in this project. And originally it was from seasteading. Patrick's thing has always been seasteading and building startup cities to try different capital structures, to try different economic structures in different places. And seasteading seemed like the only way, because every bit of land's taken. And then some libertarians have tried to say, hey, there's this little piece of land like Liberland. It's like a little bit of like land that no one wants, so we're going to just stake it and take it. I find it really a fascinating venture to build startup cities, and I really like the idea. But yeah, that's a big part of the business plan is hey, what happens when the government goes against the contract? Because that's the only way to get land, is to have a special. And I know Roger Ver was also in talks with different countries, some other more developing countries, to say, hey, allow us to have this land. And I know that one of the major things, though, so I don't know if this article is very, very trustworthy, because I know my intel inside is that they were allowed to do anything on this economic in this economic zone, but they weren't allowed to produce or export or any sort of drugs. So from this special economic zone, that was their only caveat to but you're allowed to do everything else. So I think that was sort of fascinating, and yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I really like the idea of startup cities. I like the idea of, hey, we've now got competing economics. I just don't like when countries have like, hey, we're going to try communism and we're going to put everyone in prison if they don't like it. This is what I don't like. Yeah, it's fine to try out communism or socialism in your little area of the woods. If it goes well, hey, you're fantastic, well done. And if you voluntarily went there to enjoy this system that they're building, good on you. But yeah, it was a very fascinating system, Prospera. I would still like to check it out sometime if it's still around. I don't like the use of force to make it happen, but you know, to enforce a contract is important. If you've made a contract, hey, you know, they're going to go and find a strong arm.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
The seasteading would be the way to go. I think is the lesson learned from this. Don't rely on, as I've heard of Mr. Freeman before, and I thought I didn't know he was in this. I've heard about the seasteading thing, and I think that's cool. I think that it's cool as anything. And there, no one can renege on you. I mean, you got to just build your own thing in the middle of the ocean. I mean, it's hard. That's really, really hard. And that's why it would be tempting just to get some land in desert land somewhere or whatever. But so, you know, maybe that's a takeaway that these libertarians should, you know, obviously in the article, they try to associate it with drugs and everything. I don't, you know, who knows what anybody's associated with. I don't like, they could have just, you know, stated the unemotional facts and everything like that, you know, when a government changes, you're going to get screwed. But here is a comment from the chat here. This is a new level of disgusting to compare Bukele to Mao. A new low for World Crypto Network. Actually, it is not disgusting to compare Bukele to Mao. Now, let me tell you, there's a guy named Alejandro, and I had a show about this on my channel where Benjamin Dichter was on my show. You can look it up. He's got all the information that's going on in El Salvador. Alejandro was like the #2 guy to Bukele, and there was a disagreement. And Bukele had the guy, well, all of a sudden, Alejandro ends up beaten to death. Beaten. You should see the picture of his swollen head in the frame. It's disgusting. And it got very little coverage, and no Bitcoiners talking. We're the only Bitcoiners talking about it. So, you know, comparing him to Mao on that level, there's some comparisons there. You know, having your former friends killed. Okay, being paranoid of everyone. Like it reminds me of that kind of dictatorial type of leadership where, you know, you start killing in Russia, all the guys that surrounded them in those pictures start disappearing, the inner circle. So yeah, he got someone, apparently had someone killed that used to be in his inner circle. This is what happens. So comparing him to Mao, no, it's fine. It's a fair comparison.
Yeah, one thing that really disturbed me about the whole Bukele thing right at the start, when there was murmurs of starting to bring Bitcoin in, and then they did. The thing that upset me was there was anti-Bitcoin demonstrations saying, "Hey, and there was one guy particularly got arrested and thrown in prison, and his computer destroyed, everything taken from him." And I thought, man, that's just terrible. Like, as much as I love Bitcoin, if you're anti-Bitcoin, go for it. You know, you should say your piece. You shouldn't look, throw violent criminals in prison for sure. You know, throw murderers and thugs. But like, someone demonstrating against your policy of Bitcoin should be able to demonstrate, because that's how you get some sort of dialogue going. But you know, and I thought, wow, that's pretty messed up to have someone thrown in prison because he doesn't agree with your Bitcoin policy. So yeah.
Well, and we talked about last week with our friend Rigel here, who obviously has tattoos. They threw anyone with tattoos in jail. Anyone drinking in a bar who had a tattoo went to jail. So if you like this kind of indiscriminate, not trial-based, not justice-based rounding up of people, that's what this kind of dictator style leadership leads to. And like Meister said, he may have killed his second in command. Well, it did, Josh. They rounded up everybody. It reduced crime on the street, but it also reduced population on the street. They were a bit arbitrary with it, as if there wasn't any rules, because they're making up the rules as they go along. And my problem with the Honduras situation is, again, it goes back to kind of this 80s and 90s, what the US companies used to do with sweatshops. They're just looking for weak links in the chain. They're looking for a country where they can go in, build a sweatshop, use the people. If the people unionize, if the people want more control of the sweatshop, less chemicals, something like that, they move to the next country. So the problem with these special
people there.
These special economics, but it's the same thing where I'm sure they were getting a tax deal. I'm sure they were getting a good write-off. They weren't paying taxes. There's some kind of loophole that they're using to gain advantage over these people. And when the government changed, they changed the loophole. And that's what they're really mad about. And that's why it's great to see all this kind of libertarian free thinking and all this kind of breakdown when the rules change on you and when you can't stabilize what was likely a bad deal. Like, they're probably giving this country a bad deal. Just as there's this corporate city trying to be built near San Francisco, and they've secretly bought all the land from a bunch of farmers, and now they're going to have their own city, and they're not going to pay the city tax, but they're going to be right next to the other cities, so they're going to benefit from their existence, but they're not going to pay the city's tax. It's always this kind of, we found a loophole that allows our business to excel above other businesses, and now I just think they're doing it with crypto and with special opportunity zones. We'll see how this turns out. We're running out of time, though. We're over time. Adam Meister, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead. It's all you.
Well, I want to wish everybody a happy Purim on Sunday. For those of us who celebrate Purim. And I just want to leave everybody with a very interesting, thought-provoking exercise here, mind exercise. A lot of people like to hate on Brian Armstrong. And I just saw another interview with him, and I'm just always very, very impressed. And a lot of people hate Coinbase. I think just a lot of it is just envy of the guy. And I want, people to compare the good he's done for the space to the good that Andreas has done for the space. And I think it's two different types of good. Laying the foundation, Andreas did a great job. But, that second level of just getting the normies involved, getting, fighting the government, taking a stand, and, playing the game. I mean, he going public. I admire what he's done a lot. And I think an argument could be made that maybe in the long run, when people look back, people will say, Brian Armstrong did more for Bitcoin than Andreas Antonopoulos. Not that Andreas didn't do anything, but Andreas clearly has his weaknesses too. No one is perfect. No one's going to agree with you on everything ideologically or politically. And I think a lot of people let that get in the way when they attack Coinbase, when they attack Brian Armstrong. But I've been impressed by Brian Armstrong's interview with Lex Fridman, which was about a year ago, and just the recent one by the Hoover Institution, which I actually retweeted. I think he's a very smart guy, and he's got a plan, and he does stand for some very good things, and he wants the best for Bitcoin. I think a lot of people spaz out because he doesn't always say the word Bitcoin. That's kind of like a nitpicky thing in the whole big picture future of money type of argument. So that's my thought of the week right there.
Very true. And if you guys want to learn more about Brian Armstrong, check out the Netflix documentary Coin. A very good documentary about him setting up the startup and just what an incredibly hard worker he was, how he focused on Coinbase and pretty much nothing else. He had a mono focus, as well as many people on his team. And as Adam was saying, so many of us bought our first Bitcoins on Coinbase. So many turned people on, said, hey, check this out. It's a legitimate website. It links to your bank. It's not going to steal all your money. And that's in the wake of Mt. Gox going up. And everyone's saying every Bitcoin exchange must be Mt. Gox. Coinbase has never Mt. Goxed, although they have problems and so forth. They've never completely flipped over. Let's go to Josh Segal, a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just agree there with, everyone shits on Coinbase. while I've never used Coinbase, I'm not a Coinbase customer. I don't really. I do think they've been a good player in this thing, although they have like, handed over documents to the IRS and all this other thing. But they have to play ball. They're a big company. So, and if you're a Bitcoiner expecting a big company in America not to play ball with the government, then I got a bridge to sell you. Like it's not it's of course it's going to happen. So and they've never been really massively hacked, I don't think. Well, they've definitely not been hacked to the point where they've been brought down. And every
I can
major
see them
exchange.
playing. They're going to play this part back in the future, and they're going to be like, Coinbase at this point was holding all of the assets for 9 of the 10 ETFs or something like that. And they'll be like,
Yeah.
obviously this seemed like a security problem at the time, but until the technology officer, blah, 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 went rogue inside of Coinbase, no one knew that such a major heist could happen. But yeah, then they'll
It's
play
so
this part,
dangerous.
and then they'll say that guy knew.
It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. The whole honeypot has gotten so big over there. I would be sweating bullets if I was Brian
If
Armstrong.
only we had immediate access to other planets, Brian could steal all the funds and go to another planet. I think he could buy his own planet with all those funds.
Yeah. Hey, you can already buy land on the moon, just saying. But yeah, the story of the week, I don't know. I'm getting better at windsurfing. I got up kite surfing. I got up on the board, so I'm pretty happy about that. And built some new things on the standard. You can now delete your smart vaults if you're not into them anymore. So that's really cool, and you can send them to each other without paying them off. So it's really great. And check out the standard because we've got. Oh, by the way, this show is sponsored by the subscribe button, and for this week only, there's a good deal. You can hit that subscribe button for free. So yeah, go and do that. And yeah. That's my story, really. Nothing really much to say.
That's very cool. And you guys can check out Josh's work at thestandard.io. Also, shout out to Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, for being here. People can just Google your show. Adam, is there anywhere specific they should follow you? At TechBalt on Twitter, something like that?
Yeah, it's well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. TECHBALT on Twitter. Yeah, that's the best. I put everything up there, and you'll see the recent interview that I retweeted with Brian, I think from yesterday or something.
Well, and it's very cool to have Adam here. Also for Josh to get up early and join us in Australia. It's great for you guys to join us and to keep this show going. And thanks to everybody for joining us at home, giving us the thumbs up, push and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.